Hi all, my name is Jenny and I'm back today to do another video. As you would know from my springathon vlog, which I just updated just a moment ago, but which should already be up by the time this video goes up, so I'll put a link to it up in the cards above. I am sick today. It is Sunday, May 9th, so I don't sound quite as I normally do. But I wanted to get this vlog started because I've already started one of the books that I'll be talking about in this vlog, and I didn't want to get too much further into it before I started the vlog. So as you can see from the title, this is going to be an Asian readathon vlog. I kind of forgot about the Asian readathon when I was planning my May TBR, but I wanted to remedy that by including some books that I already have on my physical TBR that I've been really eager to get to, that are written by Asian authors or authors of Asian descent. I believe all of these authors were actually technically born in America, but they all have Asian ancestry. So I wanted to participate, so I'm going to be reading these 3 books over the course of this vlog. The Asian Readathon is hosted by with Cindy, I think is her new channel name, who I'll put a link to down in the description box below. And it's basically a month-long readathon in May to celebrate AAPI Heritage Month, which is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month here in the States. All of these are books by Asian authors. I actually don't have any books by Pacific Islander authors on my shelves right now. That's not, unfortunately, in the American publishing world, a part of the world that gets a lot of literary attention. I did read Sharks in the Time of Saviors last summer, which was written by Kawai Washburn, who is Hawaiian, or at least was born on Hawaii, so he is a Pacific Islander, or at least has some of that ancestry. But other than that, I've not really read a ton of Pacific Islander authors, so if you have any recommendations, do let me know down in the comment section below. But anyway, getting into the 3 books I'm planning on reading for this vlog for the Asian Readathon. The first of those is Whereabouts by Jhumpa Lahiri. Jhumpa Lahiri is probably my favorite author. She's kind of tied with Barbara Kingsolver, but I absolutely love her. I read The Namesake in my senior year of high school, and honestly that book like changed my life. Like, I was obsessed with it. It's still one of my favorite books of all time. I want to reread it, but I'm also afraid that if I reread it, it will not have the emotional impact that it had on me when I first read it. But I've since read everything else she's published, including her memoir that she wrote in Italian, which is the most recent book that I read, which I actually read after I started my booktube channel, so I'll put a link to where I talked about that book. I think that was also something I read last summer. But this is her first novel in 10 years, and she actually originally wrote this in Italian and was published in Italy in Italian in like 2018, I want to say. And she wrote it in Italian. She's been kind of on a journey through the Italian language. She and her family lived in Italy for several years, but now she's back here in the States. And this is her first novel that she wrote in Italian, and she actually translated this novel herself, so it is very impressive. I'm very intrigued about that element of this novel. Jhumpa Lahiri is Indian American. Her parents both immigrated to America from India, but I do believe she was born here in the United States, and she's very well acclaimed. She's won the Pulitzer Prize, and a lot of her previous work touched upon themes of immigration and cultural identity, and kind of melding your outside the United States cultural identity with your American identity. And so those were kind of common themes of her work previous to her kind of falling in love with the Italian language. And now she's transitioned a lot more, I think, to themes of like understanding yourself in a new language, which is something she talks a lot about in her memoir, and I can definitely see that as a theme in this book. This book is about an unnamed narrator living in a city that I believe is in Italy, or is meant to be, but I'm not entirely sure. And we're just kind of following her musings. Obviously, Jhumpa Lahiri is still kind of learning the Italian language. I mean, she's definitely fluent enough to have written a whole like 150-page book in Italian, but she's still in the path of discovery in terms of her writing in Italian. And so this book is definitely very different to me than some of her previous works, but I'm still really enjoying it. It's definitely a book that doesn't really have a plot. It's much more kind of musings on life and on relationships and what those things mean to you, without making a ton of like greater thematic commentary on them. So I think I will probably finish this one pretty soon and definitely give kind of more of my thoughts. And then the next 2 are both Book of the Month books. The first was my April book, which is Arsenic Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. Manansala is a Filipino author, although again, I believe she was born, yes, she's a writer from Chicago, so I believe she was born here in the United States, but she has Filipino ancestry, and our main character in this book is also Filipino American. So this is a kind of cozy mystery who follows our main character, Leah Macapagal, as she kind of returns home, and it's somewhat it sounds like set up to be like a rom-com where her like former ex that lives in the small town is someone that maybe she will like get back together with, but then kind of at the beginning of the novel, she and her ex are at a party together and he actually ends up dying at the party. And so there's then some mystery as to like who killed him, what happened to him, and she obviously becomes a prime suspect given their kind of fraught previous relationship. So then I think she goes on a hunt to figure out who actually killed him, and it sounds super fun. The little blurb says that it's a mix between a Nora Ephron romp to an Agatha Christie case, which just sounds delightful. She also has this cute dog, which you can see on the cover. I think he plays a large role in this book. So I'm super excited about this one. I, as I said, got it in my April Book of the Month box, and I've been eager to get to it. So I feel like this is a great opportunity to do so, particularly given I don't read a ton of authors who have ancestry that is from the Philippines. So there is the second book that I'll be reading during this vlog. And then the last book is the book that I just got in my Book of the Month box, which is Kathy Wang's Impostor Syndrome. Kathy Wang also wrote another book, which is called Family Trust, which I remember hearing about, but I didn't ever read. It was about a Taiwanese American family who, I believe one of the parents of the family dies and they're trying to figure out what to do with the family estate, I think, if I remember correctly. But this one is kind of a spy literary fiction novel, which super intrigues me. I've read a few spy novels in the past and I always enjoy them a lot more than I expect I will. And so in this book we're following our main character, whose name is Julia. And she works as a computer scientist in Silicon Valley in the early 2000s. But she's also been tasked by the Russian version of the CIA to basically spy on the United States and spy on Silicon Valley and report back to the Russians. And so she is kind of a double agent, and she gets involved somehow with another worker who is Chinese American, I believe. Yes, so Alice Liu is a first generation Chinese American whose parents are delighted she's working at Tangerine, and Tangerine's the Silicon Valley company. And I believe Alice is slowly figuring out what Julia is actually doing and perhaps trying to like stop Julia, or perhaps she's a spy as well. So that's kind of very interesting. Apparently, according to some like other early reviews, it's not like a thriller mystery per se. It's much more like a character study of these two women and their relationship with one another and the way they kind of get treated within the Silicon Valley like tech culture. So I'm super intrigued about this one. I feel like that will be really fun. And Kathy Wang, I believe, is Taiwanese American. I think her mom is from Taiwan, but similarly to a book I'm reading for Springathon, Two Trees Make a Forest by Jessica De Liu, whose mom is also from Taiwan. I believe both of these women, actually, their grandparents were born on mainland China and then moved to Taiwan and then later moved to North America, which is really interesting. That's a really interesting history that I might actually try to kind of investigate more as I am reading these books and kind of learning more about Taiwan and its history of colonialism by mainland China. She's not like a person who can trace her roots to like indigenous Taiwanese culture, but is from mainland China, but considers herself Taiwanese American. So I find that history really interesting, and hopefully will be something I kind of look into as I get into this book. So this is the last book I'll be reading in this vlog, and I think that's everything for now. So I'll definitely check in with you once I've made more progress in whereabouts or I've finished it. So it's later on May 9th, that same day that I like first did my first check-in, and I've just finished Whereabouts by Jhumpa Lahiri, so I thought I'd kind of come on and tell you my thoughts. And I really enjoyed this one. I think I'm gonna end up giving it 4 stars. I really like the way Jhumpa Lahiri writes. I think that is pretty apparent based on the fact that she's my favorite author. I think she really shines in short fiction. She's the author of my favorite short story in addition to my favorite novel, so I feel like her short fiction is kind of where she potentially shines, and I feel like this kind of mends some elements of a novel with short fiction. This is very much reads like a diary almost of a person. It's kind of vignettes of this person's life. There's not a plot per se, nothing really happens, and we're just kind of following this character as she kind of meanders through life and thinks about different things. And some of the vignettes are pretty mundane and other ones kind of have a lot more meaning to them, so I kind of appreciated that element of it. There wasn't necessarily like a plot arc, if you will. It was much more just kind of the steady stream of life and like what happens and things that are of interest to you in the moment that you kind of would jot down that later may not seem relevant, or things that seem to be relevant at the time that later become a lot more meaningful to you. I really liked that kind of exploration of that idea and the way kind of life goes in terms of that in this novel. I particularly liked the kind of exploration of the ways that you form relationships with people, particularly strangers. So like, for example, on page 71, she's talking about how she started buying things from this man who was like selling stuff, and it was all the same price, and she didn't need any of the stuff, but she kept buying things from him, and they were just like different things that were mementos that she kind of then began to build this relationship that was still, I mean, he was a stranger to her still, but she began to build this relationship with him, and so I liked those kind of ideas explored as well. So yeah, overall I enjoyed it. I do think you'd have to be a fan of Jhumpa Lahiri and a fan of her short fiction, and also a fan of kind of plotless novels that even our main character is not really that focused. It's much more kind of a writing exercise above anything else. And I do think if it wasn't Jhumpa Lahiri writing this, I wouldn't have found it that interesting, because in general diary entry style novels don't interest me all that much, but I feel like there was something about this in particular that really kind of struck a chord with me, and I assume it's just because I love Jhumpa Lahiri and I love the way that she thinks about things, and so I appreciated this novel. Hi all, so it is Thursday, May 13th now. I think last I checked in with you it was Sunday, and I had just finished Whereabouts, and yesterday or 2 days ago I started Arsenic Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. But unfortunately, I am homesick today. As you can hear in my voice, I don't sound very good. I was sick over the weekend, as I think I talked about in my intro to the vlog. And then I was feeling better on Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday just like set me back to kind of square one. But I do think I'm gonna feel better tomorrow. But I took the day off work today just so I could rest and not like be going into a weekend again where I'm like trying to get better. So I took today off work. All I'm gonna do is just lie in bed, read some books, watch some YouTube videos. But I wanted to kind of update you on Arsenic Adobo because I am already a third of the way through with it, and it's a pretty quick read, so I don't want to like finish it before I've even updated the vlog. So I am enjoying this one so far. I really loved the first like 10 pages. I thought it was really hilarious. I was really excited for like the kind of humorous elements of this, and then the like actual cozy mystery part started happening, and I think I'm just not really a cozy mystery person. I don't like them very much. I just don't really care about the mystery. I'm much more, if I'm gonna read a mystery, want it to be kind of the twisty turny type mysteries, or something where it doesn't feel really obvious, which is kind of the vibe of a cozy mystery. Like I think that's what people like about them, but I don't really care about a mystery that seems kind of obvious as to like who did it. I mean, maybe there'll be some surprises in this one, but I have two strong suspicions of people who could even be working together to have murdered this person, and so I'll be kind of disappointed if it turns out it's one of those two people or both of them working together, just because I feel like that seems very obvious at the forefront. But yeah, I'm enjoying this one. I think I like Manansala's writing style. I also like our main character. I also like kind of the side characters. I feel like there might be a romance potentially with some of the other one of the other characters, which would be interesting, especially because this is published by Berkeley, which is traditionally a romance publisher. I mean, I do think they're kind of getting more into more other forms of commercial fiction like cozy mysteries, because I read an arc from them that I actually really hated. It was really bad, like poorly written. And this one's much better in terms of the actual like writing level, but I read another cozy mystery from them, so I think that's something they're kind of diving into more. I think I'm going to read some more of this today and potentially finish it today. If not, I'll be finishing it over the weekend, because as I said, today is Thursday, and tomorrow, if I am feeling better, is a short day at work anyway. Hi all, it's Friday, May 14th. I'm home again from work today because the parents gave me the day off so I could continue to rest, which I appreciated. And I've been editing my Springathon vlog, which will already be up. I'll put a link to it up in the cards above as always. But in my kind of breaks between that, I've been reading Arsenic Adobo, which I'm about 169 pages into. So I think there's a possibility that I could finish this one later today. But in the place where I am, our main character has just been accused of committing another crime, which I don't remember if I said this previously, but part of the kind of intrigue of this one is that she has been accused of murdering her ex-boyfriend who lives in the town, and so she's trying to kind of clear her name by investigating the crime. But she's just been accused of doing something else, which I don't want to spoil since I am pretty far into the book. But she has an alibi for like the entire morning that it could have possibly happened, so I don't really understand. Like, I always am frustrated with mysteries that have pieces like that where it's just like, okay, but in real life that couldn't possibly happen because she has an alibi for the whole morning, and she was with a bunch of people in a bunch of different locations since like the early morning until right now when she just stumbled upon this person. So it's not possible for her to have committed this crime that you think she committed. So I always just can't kind of roll my eyes a little bit when that type of stuff happens in a mystery. So I wanted to share my frustrations with all of you, but I am otherwise enjoying this one. I think the writing style's fun, and I am also enjoying the food writing quite a lot. It's really fun to kind of take a tour around this town as our main character is kind of investigating different restaurants that had received negative reviews from the man that was murdered, her ex-boyfriend, who's also like a food critic for the little local newspaper, but he writes terrible reviews. He seems to be somehow like in collusion with someone else in the community who is making money off of him writing bad reviews for these restaurants. And so she's kind of investigating all the other restaurants and any motives they have for murdering her ex-boyfriend Derek, and it's been fun to kind of read. The food writing in here is really solid. So yeah, there's pros and cons for sure. So it is the evening of Saturday, May 15th, and I wanted to let you know that last night I finished Arsenic Adobo by Mia P. Manansala, and I ended up enjoying this a bit more than I think I anticipated I would. I was surprised by the ending, which I think bumped my rating up. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars, and I think the kind of surprise of the ending and how things came together and how it kind of tied a bunch of the strings together I appreciated, particularly given that it felt really predictable throughout the rest of the mystery of kind of what was happening, and that ended up not quite being what was happening, so I appreciated that quite a bit. I will say it did kind of feel a little rushed in the end, and I kind of wish things had been tied together in just a few more pages than it was, because it was literally like the last 10 pages that everything kind of came together. But I do think future books are like in store for this series, so perhaps some of the kind of plot points in this book are going to get expanded on in future books. I'm not really sure. But I also really enjoyed the writing style here. I think Manansala is a really solid writer. I found her prose kind of really easy to get into. I also really liked her descriptions of food and the kind of budding relationships that were in here as well. I feel like there will be some kind of romantic elements of this mystery series, which I'm also quite excited about. Overall, I think this was quite a success. I mean, it definitely at times felt like it was a debut novel, but at the same time I still enjoyed it quite a bit. Granted, I did have like some issues with it, as I kind of have mentioned previously, but overall this was like a pretty solid read, I would say. But I also wanted to let you know that I have started Impostor Syndrome, which is the last book I'm going to be reading for this vlog. I'm about 67 pages into this one, and I am enjoying it so far. I think the kind of thriller mystery elements will be intriguing. I am not super well versed in like data and big tech and kind of understanding how data even like really works, which is kind of odd given that I do have, you know, a STEM background, but I don't have like a computer science background. I took one computer science class in college and I just like didn't really understand computer science in the slightest, and I do feel like this has somewhat, I think the best reader for this book is a little more ingrained in like the tech world than I am. There is kind of some lingo that's being dropped by our characters who are obviously very ingrained in the tech world, and sometimes I'm like, what are you talking about? I think also the book is split into our 3 different protagonists, and I am liking so far the way that it's set up, in that we kind of end on little cliffhangers for each of the characters, but then we're following a different part of the story with a different character. So I kind of like that aspect of it, and I feel like that works really well, particularly with more like literary mysteries, as you kind of get both the like character development that you're looking for in a literary mystery, but then also the like kind of suspense and like urge to continue reading. So I'm enjoying that part a lot. I can't remember how much I've said previously, but we are following a spy by the name of Julia, who was born in Russia, in a small village in Russia, and was given up by her mother after her father died. And so she grew up in an orphanage in Russia, and she was kind of picked out by a CIA agent, or it's not the CIA, but like the Russian CIA, to be a spy kind of early on in her childhood, and then later she officially kind of signs up and joins the spy network, and she's been tasked with becoming an executive for a big tech company in Silicon Valley and kind of giving data, but she's kind of gotten so ingrained in her life in Silicon Valley. It's been about 10 years since when she first joined the spy network and was first kind of given this mission of working and growing as an executive in Silicon Valley to like the present day when most of the story is taking place. And so she has gotten pretty ingrained in her life in Silicon Valley, and she's questioning whether or not she actually wants to be a Russian operative or not, which I think will be an interesting aspect of this book as well. And then we're also following Alice, who is a kind of more junior level position within the company that Julia runs, and she is kind of, it seems like, uncovering some of what Julia is doing. So I think there'll be some really interesting dynamics between the two of them as well. It is already setting itself up to kind of have some dialogue and commentary surrounding like women in tech and female-female relationships and kind of competition, I think, in the tech world, which I think will be really interesting as well. Hi everyone, so it's been several days. It's now Friday, May 21st since I last updated the vlog, which I think was last weekend. Work this week has just been kind of busy. It was the last like full week of school, so we only have 3 days left, which means I only have 3 days left of this job, which is crazy. But I wanted to kind of give an update on Impostor Syndrome, which I'm probably going to finish tomorrow, I would bet. I only have about 100, maybe 90 pages left, and it is definitely kind of picking up speed a little bit, but I do have a like virtual birthday party I'm going to this evening, so I don't think I'll be able to finish this, but I am enjoying it quite a bit. I think there's a lot of thought-provoking ideas here that I'm going to get into probably once I actually finish the book, about work and the gender roles within work, and particularly about working moms. I feel like is a large kind of thread throughout this novel, which is not one that I'm super familiar with in other novels, so I've been interested to kind of see that explored here. I also do like the spy elements of it. I think that is also pretty well done, and I am finding it to be kind of intriguing as a literary thriller. I feel like the chapters are a little long, and so I'm not super inclined to keep turning the pages as I was with like Long Bright River, which is another literary thriller that I've read like in the recent past. I am though interested in all three of our storylines. I feel like they're all playing with, as I said, these ideas of work and like personal life, and the intersection of like how much should work dictate the rest of your life, I think is really being kind of put to the test in this book, particularly given that 2 out of our 3 characters that we're following are spies, and so their entire lives are really surrounded by work because they have to keep this work identity a secret, but it's dictating so much of what they do and say and who they interact with, which I think is a really interesting way of kind of exploring these kind of more universal ideas of our relationship to work and how that dictates our personal lives. I also am definitely intrigued to see how it all wraps up, as I don't really know where it's going right now. I mean, we've kind of had all of the reveals that you'd expect from the plot synopsis. I feel like I guessed most of what has happened so far just purely because that was kind of in the plot synopsis, but the rest of the book is a mystery to me. So I definitely am intrigued to kind of see who decides to make their knowledge known to others, who decides to do other things perhaps unrelated to what they're currently doing. I feel like there's a lot of potential paths for this book to go and for the characters to go, and so I'm intrigued to see where those characters end up. Another day, another clip of me sitting in front of my bed. Okay, so I have finished Impostor Syndrome by Kathy Wang. I finished this morning. It is Saturday, May 22nd, and I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's a really solid read that is both entertaining, but I think also comes with some deeper themes and things to kind of think about. I particularly enjoyed the way that the book talks about corporate culture and work-life balance, as that's not something I've seen a lot in other fiction, and I think is a really interesting topic, and definitely one that I think is coming up more and more in kind of general conversation. And so I feel like this book is kind of a great launching off point for having that discussion in like a group setting, maybe like a book club or something. I feel like this is a solid read to kind of bring about a larger discussion about work-life balance, and particularly as a like woman working in a very male-dominated field, as 2 of our main characters are in this book. I think this book kind of portrays the struggle of finding that work-life balance in a really interesting way. And I think also because 2 of the characters in this book are actual spies, and so their life has to be part of their work because of the nature of their work, I thought that was also kind of an interesting take on thinking about how do people who are even spies or executives for a company, that their life has become ingrained in that work because of the persona that they have to put forth, because of the nature of their public facing role or the nature of how private their like professional life is. That I thought that was really interesting as well, and something that I hadn't really thought about and appreciated from this novel. I also found the kind of thriller mystery aspects of it to be interesting. I thought they were portrayed pretty well. At times I didn't entirely follow like who everyone was and how they were related to one another, but I don't think, again, that was like a central tenet of this book. While that was like a fun kind of plot device, it wasn't really what this book was trying to do and discuss, and so that was not like a part of the book that I was super drawn towards anyway, and so I think I just didn't quite pay that much attention to those sections of the book. I also think the kind of discussion around being a working mom in this book is one of our main characters, Julia, who is the spy from Russia, who is the now executive at Tangerine, the like Google, Facebook company that is the kind of Silicon Valley stand-in in this book. I think that discussion of being a working mom who's like the breadwinner of the family, but also still like the mom of the family who has to kind of be in charge of maintaining the household and taking care of the baby, I thought that was really interesting. I will say I was a little confused because at times Julia is, obviously we're meant to sympathize with her because of the nature of her situation in her personal life, which I don't want to get into because it's kind of spoilery, but there's some issues happening in her personal life that I think the reader is meant to be very sympathetic towards, but at the same time she also like is a villain in this book because she's a literal spy that is leaking information about like US operatives and other people that then gets used by the Russian government. And so there is this kind of interesting dichotomy that I wasn't quite sure about in the discussion surrounding Julia and the kind of decisions she's making. But I did still enjoy her as a character, and I also really enjoyed Alice, who, on a kind of related note, we also see a discussion of like student debt and the kind of education debt that most young people in the workforce are dealing with, and therefore is kind of keeping them in certain positions. I thought that was discussed also kind of really well in this book as well. So lots of interesting discussions as it relates to work in this book that I think is kind of new in terms of fiction topics, and so I appreciated what this book was doing with all of those things. I would definitely recommend it if it sounds interesting to you, and I do think the kind of more mystery thriller elements of it also kind of keep you engaged. So there is Impostor Syndrome, the last book that I will be reading or reviewing for this vlog. So this also is going to conclude this part of the vlog. So just to go over the other books that I read, I guess you could put this one down, but Impostor Syndrome was one, and then I also read Arsenic Adobo by Mia P. Manansala, which I gave 3.5 stars to. Did enjoy this one, but it was kind of fell into some tropes slash at times felt a bit too much like a debut novel. And then last but not least, I read Whereabouts by Jhumpa, Lahiri, which I enjoyed. I also gave 4 stars to. I don't remember a ton about it anymore, but I did enjoy the kind of discussions here, and obviously Jhumpa, Lahiri is a favorite of mine. So yeah, overall I would say this was quite a successful little group of books, definitely books that I'm not sure I would have gotten to otherwise, so I'm glad that I kind of incorporated both a readathon that I wanted to participate in and also read some books that otherwise wouldn't have been on my TBR. If you enjoyed this type of kind of themed reading vlog, do let me know down in the comment section below, as I'd be happy to kind of incorporate more of those themed reading vlogs on my channel. Additionally, if you are new to my channel, I'd love to have you stick around and subscribe. I hope you're having a great rest of your day whenever you watch this, and I will talk to you next time.